All right, all right. Welcome back to College Sports and More. This is Rashad B in the house. Indiana, IU boat raced Oregon Ducks 56-22, as you all know the score. Have not I have told you about Indiana? This is a team that I've been riding with the whole year. Matter of fact, last 2 years. Um, and I've been watching them, studying them, and looking at them, and they're just taking names and numbers and rolling through. Uh, they are an unstoppable force, folks. People have talked about, well, you can't beat a good team twice. Well, Indiana has done that. They said the Indiana can't haven't played nobody. They're going up against big bad Alabama, and they're going to get shown who they really are and what they do, like a wrecking ball, boat raced Alabama. They went up against Ohio State. Everybody said, okay, it's going to be a repeat of what happened the year before. And now they're going to really have to show their mettle. And what they do, dismantle Ohio State. Okay. So this Indiana force loves the haters, loves folks saying what they cannot do. And sure enough, they want to prove everybody wrong. I've had them in my bracket to win it all, and I'm continuing to ride that horse. That Indiana will do so. Now, Indiana, um, going into this, again, people was doubting that they can't not beat a good team twice, and I was one of the lone voices that said, sure, Indiana will be. They have already defied that. They were the first team that had a bye to win a playoff game. Okay, everybody else went 0 for 7, and then Indiana showed up and they said, "No, we're gonna turn this script." Again, what have they said about all the other teams that lost? They kept showing the graphic time and again everywhere. Oh, look at all the teams that had to play a team again and who lost, right? You know, Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, um, and so on. And yet and still, and then they went back to all championship games. They went to like LSU, Alabama, and all these other games that they were showing where teams had played. And none of that stuff matters with Indiana, folks. None of that stuff matters with Indiana. Now let's get to the game itself, right? Break that down. Okay. Right out the gate. And I was looking at that play. I was everybody else was looking at that play. But I mean, I was studying it as the play went through. And you see, because as a cornerback, you see that ball coming, and D'Angelo Pons right out the gate did what he was supposed to do, take it back to the house, and right there, that was, to me, that was ball game right there. I knew right at that point that Indiana was ready to go fire. I mean, I wasn't no doubt that they was going to be coming in ready to play, because I thought that they're going to start off fast, and sure enough, that's what they did, and that just set the tone for me that automatically that Oregon better be ready, because see, people kept talking about Oregon. I was watching Oregon's tape, and I was telling folks with regard to the way Oregon played um, in that Texas Tech game was revealing. They revealed a lot. People was thinking about, oh well, they beat Texas Tech 23-0, and all this and that and the other, but they wasn't looking at we're watching the game in terms of how Oregon was playing. Their offense wasn't really clicking. And you take some things with that game, and they was revealing a lot as far as some tendencies and things of that nature that Indiana could exploit. And so much so, Kurt Signetti himself, Coach Kurt Signetti, mind you, said it himself in post game interviews that when he was looking at that tape with Texas Tech, he was smiling. He was like, "Well, we can exploit some things with them." And he was seeing what I was seeing, what a lot of other folks who know ball was seeing relative to what Indiana can do best against Oregon. And sure enough, it showed up last night. It showed up in this 56 to 22 curb stomping that they put on him. And he is a shark in water and blood, sick in blood, because he's not stopping for nothing. Once he turns the dogs loose, it's on. And so from that point on, now granted, I will get into, because there were things that was like, okay, Indiana's kind of letting their foot off the gas here a little bit. Now, credit to Oregon coming right back, so we can go through the game, right? They came right back and did score with a nice drive. Okay. However, in that drive, because they made some key third down, because I was looking at that, because I think they were like 3 for 3 on the third down plays, and it was like especially hitting the tight end up the middle and stuff like that. And you would have thought that Indiana would have been, been prepared for that, to scheme for that more so, that they was going to do that, because at that point they didn't have confidence. See, the confidence was shook on throwing it to the wide receivers on the out routes and all that kind of stuff out on the wides. So they were going to have to target the middle, or they was going to have to dump off to the running backs. That's what I was thinking that they were going to be doing on the pass game, to get Moore's confidence back up, because he didn't want to throw no balls back on the sides, because he know number 5 is sitting over there, and he didn't want to do that. So I felt that they was going to always try to work, especially since they didn't use the tight ends as much, that they have liked in that first matchup. So I figured that they was going to try to do that. And some other analysts had said the same thing, that they was going to do that and so forth. And so they did that. And that helped that drive sustain itself. And then eventually the tight end scored a touchdown there, uh, to end. But even with that, I wasn't thinking or panicking, and certainly, I'm not gonna panic, but to think that, oh yeah, that this is a game, because I still felt that the momentum, that that Indiana was still the better team. Okay, regardless, that they was going to win this game. And the telltale was like, how was Indiana's going to respond? And sure enough, Indiana responded by going right down our field and scoring. And I was like, okay, Indiana ain't playing. So they gonna come up, and then you have to watch. Okay, well then what is Oregon going to do in their next series? And then what do they do? Sure enough, nothing. Right? But give the ball right back to Indiana, which you cannot do. And then bam, it's 21-7. Bam, it's 28-7. Bam, it's 35-7, right going into halftime. And then, I mean, if that don't tell you that the game is over, then I don't know what else, because at that point, even like I said, from the get-go, I was never wavering to the fact that Indiana wasn't going to win the game. I was feeling as strong going into the game as I was at the end of the game. And it was just seeing Indiana execute as Indiana executes. This team does not beat itself. This team plays some of the best ball that you can ever watch college football, because of how well coached they are. But again, they are human, okay, and they do have some things that they need to kind of clean up with at times, that was shown in the game. But again, they were already in heavy command of the game. It wasn't like the game was any doubt, or it was like a close game, to where those mistakes were kind of playing themselves, because again, they got um, some things they want to be better with, which is great. They're gonna have to go from film, and they're gonna look at some stuff, to where they was giving up some plays, some chunk plays, and different things like that, because there was some times where they was rushing, and when they completed those plays, and I thought that they maybe should have had just peeled back and more of a prevent, and as opposed to just kind of heavy rushing on them, because when um, uh, Moore made some good completions on some plays, it was like I felt the defense. It's because they were passing down, so they passing the ball, but they uber aggressive, so they're going to keep attacking toward the quarterback. Obviously, those tactics prove their worth more so than not. Again, because they've held them when it mattered, and so forth. However, so So for each subsequent play, touchdown, turnover, etc., it just kept, the tidal wave just kept growing. The snowball just kept growing. And give credit to the IU fans, the crowd. I mean, the takeover of the stadium, another IU takeover similar to what they did at the Rose Bowl, the IU takeover. Now, I don't know how that's going to play with this national championship game with Miami, since they're going to be at the crib. They're going to be, and I'm sure, because I was thinking about that going into that. I said, okay, Miami, they won that game on Thursday night. So those fans are going to be probably snapping up as many of them tickets as they possibly can. So you better hope that Indiana, because whatever team won that game, they were going to be, their fans were going to be probably getting the second fiddle tickets if they had not already bought tickets beforehand, because I had heard that there's some fans who did that, who bought some tickets beforehand, and if their team lost, either they're going to go to the game or they just going to just sell them, and so forth. And so, but now, that we know IU versus Miami, them tickets going to be selling like hotcakes, because you're going to have all these Miami fans who are right there who want to see this resurgence of Miami. Then you're going to have all these IU fans who want to see this great history being made uh, continually. So this is going to be the hot ticket game, and I heard numbers of like $1,000, $3,000, and so forth for these tickets. So you could expect it to be just pandemonium for both fan bases, because they're both are thirsty and hungry for a national championship. And and there's going to be plenty. I'm talking about thousands of people on both fan bases that will be at the game without tickets. They're going to be in the bars. They're going to be out on the streets. They're going to be outside the stadium. They're going to be wherever uh, they can take part into this historical moment. So this is going to be set up for a type of event that's just going to be, you want to see. However, when I get to my game breakdown though on this in a minute, you better watch out for their Miami Hurricanes. Now, so yeah, this game, when you look at it, like I said, let's go starting with Mendoza. The throws that he was making was, again, elite level NFL throws. The catches that the wide receivers was making, especially Surratt, was NFL ready throws. I mean, they was getting hands to the ball. They was their body movements, everything that they did was showing elite level. And it goes to the coaching, it goes to the athletic talents that these players have, and they were making money, because that was the first thing I said when Pons made that INT pick six, was that boy making some money tonight. That boy is making him some NFL money tonight. So, but he did give up a couple of plays though. I mean, it was contested though. It wasn't like he was just got beat and the guy just running free. The guys made some plays on him that was contested stuff. So he was locked up on his man, especially that one deep throw that they made. Um, was in like in the second quarter there, and it was a well contested ball, but the guy just made an outstanding catch on it. However, um, um, Mendoza was in command. Again, that one running play. So let me kind of get to the flubs there. The one in play. You want your quarterback to be aggressive, to be in the game, to be a difference maker, an X factor, to keep that defense honest, to let them know, look, I will run the ball too, and he's capable of running the ball. But that little spin move and him, kind of like, that's where you don't want your quarterback to be doing. You don't want him kind of running and doing that little spin, because exactly what happened was going to happen. That ball can get knocked out. But thankfully for IU, their center, I believe, was right there to get on that ball. So you knew everything's going right in IU's favor when that happened. They, and so forth. But But so that got to be somewhat, just coachable. All the stuff is correctable. The mistakes that IU made. It's not like a deficiency that, oh man, we just weak here, because going into it, even going to the postseason, the talk was, okay, well, how is IU's depth is going to be with their defensive line, because they're missing two starters back to back because of injuries and so forth, and they certainly don't have a huge amount of depth on their D line, but the guys that they have in there are doing superb. They're playing up to a level where they're not missing a beat anyway. So so that was well, uh, earned in that part of that game. The defensive line was just dominating from left to right, especially with the fourth down stop, with the third down stops, with the sacks that they made, with the pressures that they put on more, and so forth. I mean, just outstanding. And like I said, this team is so well coached. They don't hurt themselves. They don't make stupid penalties, other than them little couple of little false starts and things that was going on with the offensive line there. Again, that's some stuff that they can fix. And you wouldn't have thought that they would have had that, because they had the crowd. I mean, the stadium was IU, so it was kind of weird why they had them false starts in that sense. But again, it didn't hurt them. And as Coach Shanahan was saying, the offensive coordinator was talking about after the game regarding trying to keep the balance, even though, he knew that IU had a lot of momentum. He didn't want to be too one dimensional. He didn't want to be just running the ball so much to where you want to still, keep balance. You want to throw the ball, you want to run the ball, and so forth, to keep balance, keep your rhythm, keep things moving, even though you got a huge lead and all that stuff. Take time off the clock and what have you, um, and everything. And so that was one of the things I felt like, on that first Oregon drive, to where they scored the touchdown in the first quarter, that was going to be their script. I mentioned this before, that Oregon's going to take the ball, air out the ball. They're going to want to keep this game low and control the clock. They're going to keep that ball out of Indiana's hands, a chance for them to, because that was part of the lesson learned. Because again, what had happened when they in that first game, when they got the INT, the pick six, and then tied the game up 2020, and then Oregon, I mean, they got to get the ball back, and then what happens? Indiana goes down and scores. So they were well aware of what capabilities IU had and so forth. And so they wanted to shrink the ball, and so forth, to keep it low scoring, to control the clock and do all those sort of things. Well, that playbook was thrown out the window real fast. So so those things, and then defensively, some of the things that want to mention about what IU, like I said, I mean, certainly, um, they did an A+ in terms of well, I'm gonna say A. Okay, A. I gotta give them A. Not A+. I'm giving A because, again, some of those things where they was giving up some plays, that I felt that they could have had just played better defense with, and they will admit that themselves too. I mean, they're gonna watch the film. They're gonna see the stuff that they was giving up some plays with. But again, nothing hurtful, nothing so damaging. Yes, they were moving the ball, but they wasn't getting in the end zone. Now, when they got them, when Oregon ended up getting the first touchdown, well, the second touchdown rather, um, then it was like, okay, that came off one big play, okay, a running play that the guy ran like 50 yards, 70 something yards on, or something like that. So that was that drive right there. And then, of course, the last touchdown, which they got in garbage time, which like with 30 seconds left in the ball game, was a wash. So, but still, because you had a mix of starters and subs in there, so they was trying to. Because a lot of people kept telling, even with the lead, when they're going to take Fernando out and put his brother in there. Well, no, Zanetti's like keeping the gas. Look, this is a big time game. We gonna keep playing, because that team, a lot can happen. And, and just as Indiana was getting favorable turnovers and all that, it can go sideways too. And the game can change. So you never just want to just say, okay, well, we're going to just put in a regular season, yes, but not when it's the stakes are this high. You're going to keep Fernando in there as long as needed, uh, because you just don't want to risk things with putting in backup quarterback, and then if he has, let's say he fumbled the ball, let's say he did exactly what Moore was doing, throwing a pick six, fumbling the ball, uh, getting sacked, and all those sorts of things, then that's a whole different ball game because if they score a couple of plays off of that, then and the game can change in seconds. So you don't risk that. You keep your foot on their neck, and as Quit Signetti did, and so forth. Now, if it had been like a couple minutes left in the game, similar to what happened in the Alabama game, then yeah, you put him in, let him run the ball, control the clock and do all that stuff like that. But 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 this game here, the stakes is too high, and so forth. And again, as we saw, Oregon was still playing. Okay, even though they was the lead and the gap was wide, but they were still playing. And as you saw, they didn't tap out. They with seconds left in the game, they still scored a touchdown. So again, and how quick now they might not have gotten enough to kind of tie the game or take the lead or anything like that, but it's just the feel of that threat and so forth. And so you didn't want that to occur. So now, like I said, so they finished off an amazing, dominating win. They are turning believers into these haters and these folks who think that IU is a fraud. IU hasn't played nobody. The IU, oh, they keep talking, oh, the lack of 4 stars and 5 stars that they don't have. It don't matter what no 4, 5 stars and 4 stars at this point because these subjective uh, rankings mean little to nothing. Do they keep saying about that in the NFL? How many first round draft picks this team has on the team, and second round draft picks that the team has on the team? No. That after a while that doesn't mean nothing. So they keep harboring on that point. That IU doesn't have no 4 stars. They are a college team. Okay, these are college players. They're not high school recruits anymore, and none of that stuff means anything because even on the best teams with all the 4 star and 5 schools, what are they doing? You know, or the NFL talent. That was another reference they kept making about. Oh, this team has all this NFL talent, and IU only have a couple of guys that's going to be NFL players, and this and that and the other. Doesn't matter. They ain't talking about the NFL. This is a college game. It's not an NFL game. This is about college. So, but again, outstanding win. Now let's get to the natty stuff. Now, this Miami game against IU, this is going, like I said, it's going to be a monster game. But I'm very confident, highly very confident that IU is going to do what they've been doing to the other folks. As vaunted as this Miami defense is, but like I said, they were somewhat neutralized their defensive line, the key cogs on the ends, those bookend defensive ends that they have, were pretty much neutral. Like they didn't do a whole bunch against Ole Miss that impressed me enough to make a difference in the game. And if they playing, like I said, if Miami played like they played, like I've said this before, if Miami played, I said this mother video, if Miami played Indiana, the way they played against Ole Miss, that game gonna be over for it. Like it's gonna be a repeat of what IU did to Oregon last night. Okay, and that's what they want to do. They want to silence that crowd. They want to jump out hard and fast, the same playbook on Miami as they did against Oregon. And if that happens, if they jump out to that lead, because that's what they're gonna keep that Miami crowd quiet. They're gonna keep the IU fans loud and boisterous, but they're gonna keep that Miami crowd silent and watching and in shock with their mouths open because they are coming and they can get to Beck. But I'm gonna give my preview coming up, so I'm not gonna give too much yet. But there's gonna be some key factors that I'm gonna get into on this game. But let's just celebrate the win for IU over Oregon. And like I said, I like Oregon. I was cheering for Oregon. I went to the Rose Bowl game. I said it last year. Um, and everything, when they played Ohio State, believing that Oregon was going to win that game, you know. But little did all of us know that juggernaut that Ohio State turned into, just boat racing everybody and everything. So I like I say, I'm a fan of Oregon. I'm a fan of college football first and foremost. So I just love to watch good college football teams. Like I said, I was really impressed with all of the four teams that made it to the semifinals. So I was like comfortable either way it went in terms to which team would win because all of them have a great story that to be said. Oregon would be the first time that Oregon would win a national championship in football. Certainly Miami and their resurgence, which we talked about, which I applied. It's great to see all those Miami alums and ex great players back, supporting their university and all that stuff. And the U, they was playing the U documentary this past week and stuff, and I watched a little bit of that. And so, it's good to see Miami back up out there, because that's great for college football. And then, of course, Ole Miss story, what all went on with Lane Kiffin and everything and stuff. And hopefully this kid Chambliss gets another year eligibility and so forth. Hopefully that gets reversed because again he makes for a great story and everything that he had went through. But if not, he's projected to be one of the top 6, 7 quarterbacks taken in the draft. So he still has some opportunities ahead of himself on the pro level. Um, and you wish him well with that too, and what have you. And they was a gamey team, So Ole Miss um, was great. So all of them offered something really, something you can cheer for, or not maybe for some folks, but great storyline. So I was comfortable either way. But IU to me is the story of the season. IU is the story of the last 2 seasons, and everybody has pretty much have heard the story, the fact that this was the worst college football team, Power Four college football team, and now they're the best. And they're one more game from proving that they're the best. Um, and even if they lose this game, which I don't believe is going to happen, but if they were to lose this game, it still does not take away from the story of what Indiana. It still does not tarnish anything about. They will still be a celebrated team. There still be stories and video and documentaries and all this stuff will be made about them in their historic season. The team will be honored and recognized for years to come. When they do anniversaries, the 5 year or 10 year or whatever, 25-year anniversary of this IU team that was Big Ten champs and made it to the national championship and all that stuff. So regardless of the outcome of this national championship, this team is going to go down in history. This team will be always honored and beloved by IU fans, alumni, and its whole family and others and so forth. So it's a great time to be an IU fan. It's a great time for college football fans everywhere to be embracing to what this is. So that's going to do it for this segment. Again, IU takes down mighty Oregon Ducks 56-22. And stay tuned. Be sure to hit the like button if you like my content because I will have some more things coming up. Trust me, as we get prepared for this national championship. I'm going to do my national championship preview And then, of course, I'm going to do my post game analysis as well with regard to that. And so appreciate you guys tuning in for me and watching my content and supporting my content. And we'll catch up with you next time. All right.